Okay, it is 6:34. Let's call our meeting to order. We're going to begin with the invocation and the pledge.
Father God, as we come together this evening, we ask you to you preside over this meeting for us, and you guide us as we make decisions for the city of Simonton. We ask that you watch over us and keep us safe and sound, keep our families safe while we're here tonight. We ask you to watch over and bless all our first responders, policemen, firemen, etc. And we ask you all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, item 3 on our agenda is public comments. Ms. Jamie, do we have any public comments today?
Yes, ma'am. We have Natalie Wrigley has signed up to speak to address the council, and Susan Bedard and Ms. Barker.
Okay, so Ms. Natalie is going to present during our audit section. So we could go ahead to the next. I'm sorry, you say Susan was next?
That's me.
Yes.
You don't always have to have something to say. So after all the other meetings that we sat in with all the budget and all that other stuff, I've done a lot of thinking about what's been said about how to pull money from reserves to do roads and stuff like that. So I personally feel like, this is my personal opinion, that's not the right thing to do. If there's money that was allocated for roads that hasn't been spent, I think that's perfectly fine to spend. But I think, let's be honest, if you're not going to fix the roads, just say you're not going to fix the roads. Don't pull money from somewhere that's not designed for roads. Just be honest about it. Come out and just say, we're not doing this. We don't have the money for it. We're not going to create the money for it. So that's kind of where I am on that. So it's just reality. Thank you.
Ms. Barker.
And I'm on the board for the Courtney County Library Committee, and I just want to let everybody know about the Fulshire Library that's closed, but the new one that's getting ready to open very soon, and all the different things that the library offers, including helping people to train for jobs and other languages, homework assistance. There's lots of different things the library does that people don't know about. And Jane said I could leave some pamphlets out here, and I've left some at the post office too.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Barb.
Thank you, Barb. Wish I'd known about that homework assistance thing. That's what I'm thinking.
Math.
Okay. Item 4 is public hearing on the proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24. We'll open the hearing if we have any comments. There'll be public comments, if any. If not, that's all right. Okay. No comments. We will close the hearing for the proposed budget for fiscal year 23-24. Item 5 is adoption of the budget ordinance for fiscal year 23-24. This is the 30-cent budget that we've met on the last, I think, 2 meetings. And council agreed that this was the version, I shouldn't use the word agreed. What's the term?
Proposed.
No,
Consensus.
Yes, and consent.
we had consensus on the 30-cent budget. So tonight would be to adopt that 30-cent budget. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Great. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Yes, I had a prepared statement that I wanted to make.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Our current budget calls for city staff salaries to reach new heights over $323,000, and that includes insurance, taxes, and retirement. I believe that we only need a city secretary hired for a reasonable salary. I've prepared a statement for the council to look over the numbers I've taken from the book that the mayor loaned me to do research on this matter, It's the 2023 Regional Salary and Benefits Survey. The ad valorem tax, which is our city tax, was agreed upon to pay for the roads of Simonton, not for city staff. The reality is that before Lori was elected as mayor, our city, which is a mayor, city council run city, not a council city administrator run city, was competently run with a mayor, a city council, and a city secretary. Our city is still the same size as it was. I know there's a lot of talk about the huge growth coming to our fair city, but the truth is we are extremely limited in our growth possibilities. We are 2 square miles, and most of that is Valley Lodge. We have our ETJ, but we have little to no say as to what happens there. In most cities, the job of the city secretary is fairly easy. I believe with the right person in that position, it can, again, after, of course, we get finances straightened out, but you're going to hear more about that later. The monetary difference between what the mayor wants to spend on office staff and what I believe we, the city council, should implement is around $200,000. I believe that money needs to go to the repair of the roads of Simonton to benefit the residents of the city, the original purpose for the city tax, not funding city staff. Since being elected, we've continually asked for but have not received accurate information. We are considered to be a hostile council only because we've been asking questions that haven't been asked in years by past city councils. Approval of the monthly finances and the oversight of the city staff ended in January of 2019. And you can see that for yourself by looking at the past city minutes online. Most every report we've been given is inaccurate. Every budget we've looked at has been in a different format, and the numbers just simply don't add up. We've had a lot of budget meetings by now because of time restraints, and without knowing what the actual finances of the city are, we have to pass this budget. We've requested budget versus actual reports. The figures in those reports do not match the monthly reports we've been given. When asked about this, the answer is always the same. It's because we're switching to a new accounting software, FundView, or we'll get back with you about that. We, the city council, are responsible for the oversight of the finances of the city, a duty we were sworn to do by the state of Texas. We've been trying to do what we were elected to do. If we do not oversee the finances of our city and run it correctly, then we would be doing exactly what the city council has been doing for the past 5 years, not watching over the finances of the city or its staff. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, I should have asked you, do we need a roll call vote on the budget?
Roll call vote.
So, Ms. Janey, if you would mind to please take a roll call vote.
Okay. Councilmember Kelly Matula.
No.
Councilmember Courtney Cox.
Yes.
Mayor Lori Boudreau.
I don't vote unless there's a tie.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
Councilmember Faith Haley.
Yes.
Councilmember Justin Boudreau.
Yes.
And Councilmember Burns Turner.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thanks everybody for all the hard work to get to this point. Appreciate that. I'm going to change the order of the items on the agenda so that our calling in folks and traveling folks can present first, and we'll come back to the consent agenda item later. So we're going to move down to new business item 7A.
I'm sorry.
If anybody needs to move to be able to see the screen, this is, it might be frozen or...
He's on mute.
Do you want to take us off mute and then he can hear us?
Yes, I'm texting him so he can hear.
Julie and Ryan figured out our board that we sometimes works for us and sometimes not. So now we have an in-house expert, Julie.
Ryan, can you hear me? Oh, you say that. And then
He looks like he's frozen.
He does look like he's frozen.
Mayor,
May I ask a point of order? There was no number listed on the agenda. I could have had people call in as well. How did people know about this call-in?
Our presenter,
There's no
Our
requirement
presenters.
for a presenter to post a number. This is not a member of the public, this is a presentation to the council.
Pardon me, I didn't understand. I thought this was members of the public calling in.
When I moved it froze, so give me just a minute.
so this will be, he'll say this for himself, well, this will be the quarterly presentation from Revenue Management. That was the additional printout that council had since he was gonna bring it. We just went ahead and printed it, that's why it's not in your book. And if we can get him back here in a minute or so, we'll
I'm sorry.
go ahead with that, and if not, we may need to push him until, I know, I shouldn't have said that the hub got figured out until after it was.
It's connecting back. I think it's when I moved it. There we go.
Here it comes, Joe.
Brian, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So this is Ryan Fortner with Revenue Management Services.
I am ready whenever you all are for me.
We're ready.
Okay. Well, first of all, good evening, Mayor Boudreau, City Council, and staff. My apologies for this kind of a headache. I've been really sick with something for a while now, and my doctor said that it's probably best for not only City Council, but also your constituents that I stay away. And so I appreciate you allowing me to meet with you all virtually. I hope this will not happen again. I believe that everyone should have a copy of the most recent sales tax report in their packet. I'm going to begin on page 3 of that report. The initial paragraphs you see there, nothing really changes. That just explains how we do our
Is that 100?
the report that you see in front of you is, sorry,
You're good.
is it okay?
Yes.
Okay. The report has information through the month of August and including September 2023. Turning to page 4 of the report, what you see at the very top of the state demographics, this is from 2000 to the present. Your average allocation per year is $137,483, and again, when you break out 23 years of data, this number is going to be low. I will show you the more updated and correct number in just a moment. Again, average allocation per month is $22,693, low because we're looking at all those years of data. For 2023, your total allocations have reflected $315,780.15, and your average allocation this year is $35,086.68. You'll see below that how we compare 2017 to 2023. The reason we chose 2017 is because that's as far back as we can go for recovery of missing revenues for the state. So that is the most important time frame that we're focusing on. And when you look at that below the yearly allocations graph, you will see that from 2017 to the present, everything is up to the right. Looking at currently 2023 with 3 months remaining. This time last year, the city saw revenues of $272,057.03. So already we are 16% above this same time frame last year. So I have absolutely no question in my mind that we will exceed revenue streams from last year of $368,684.46. If you turn to page 5, this is more of an internal document for us with clients. We break down the various sales tax permits that are reflected at the state level that have or will remit sales taxes within the city of Simonton. And you will note that there's 2,793. Many of these sales tax permits have permitted anything from 1 cent to half a cent, but they are all included, and these categories are listed by the NAICS codes. Turn to page 6 of the report. Look at August of 2022 through August of 2023. We show that in August of 2023, there was a 2.3 increase in tax rates compared to last year. I can tell.
Good, sir.
And it's going to be, I'm sorry.
You were breaking up for just a minute, Ryan.
Okay.
If you want to go back to the last few, like 6 words.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, we're listening.
Oh, okay, my apologies. 3% increase over this time last year. We're averaging 513 tax filers per month. We are still showing February of 2023 to be the highest taxpayer remittance in the city's history of 604. Number of taxpayers this year, but I do feel very strongly that next year in February we will, because February of 2024 will reflect not only annual taxpayers of 2023, but also the very last quarterly filing. And so February will close out tax year 2023, and I do expect that we will see this number at that time. The monthly tax filers graph is listed below, where again, each 23 is being the highest. On page 7, this is where we break down your top 25 taxpayers. And as I mentioned last time that I was with you, we found over the years that it usually is the top 25 in any client we serve that are some of the biggest and most pronounced sales tax filers. However, if council wants to see the top 50, top 100, all you have to do is let me know. We're happy to incorporate that into this report. But for this council, we have the top 25 for your 12 months combined. You'll see below that the top 25, 352,000. Below that, you'll see the taxpayer breakdown. On to the right of the report for August of 2023, you'll see your top 25 at 30,000, and the way the sales taxpayer breakdown works there as well. Interesting to note that we have prepared a little bit of your sales tax problem. I'll get to that in just a moment. That's not reflected in August because that came in your September check. But when you look at August of 2023, you will notice there are multiple reoccurring e-commerce filers within the district. For example, number 20, Lowe's Home Centers. There is not a Lowe's in the city. This is all from individuals buying from Lowe's online. In all, $3,102.88 recovered up to today for the month. There were several number of businesses filing over $1,000. You'll see that information is below. And on page 8, we will review, speaking of for August. That e-commerce based, and 21 filings that were physical brick and mortars within the city. Below that, you will see your top 10 e-commerce filers, and that's for 12 months. Excuse me, 13 months, I'm sorry, for August of 2022 through the present. And this is very, very much what we see in most of our clients. There's a few that we don't see, but you know, the top 5, we see in every single client we serve. On page 9, this is where we begin the September of 2023 data. September of 2023, 43,686 compared to $34,070.19 last year. And that's a 28% increase over 2022. And I can tell you that having we just got it this afternoon, so I really haven't had a lot of time to go through it. But most of that increase is reflective of e-commerce kind of makeups and more e-commerce added to the city, which was one of the big things that we were set up to address. And so what we're looking at now is we're looking at quarters. For example, quarter 3, we are in quarter 3 now for the city. This time in quarter 3, we received $109,543. This time last year, $99,303. So we are remaining ahead of where we were last year. When you look below that, you have your allocation averages and a mean allocation of $35,086. So if you just wanted to be very conservative, back of the envelope, how are we going to finish out the last 3 months? You could take this $35,086, multiply it by 3, and add that to your budget. However, this does not take into consideration if one more quarter coming. This is just a very conservative estimate. And lastly, behind that, monthly allocations from 2016 to the present, 2017 to the present, with those numbers listed there, so you can see each month. And you can look at 2023 and you can see that the numbers are very, very good for the city. Just looking at January, we went from 22,000 in the year of 2022 to 46,000 in 2023, and on it goes. So we are optimistic for keeping the recoveries up with the e-commerce and with the higher than normal sales tax averages. And next month, there will be a little bit more of an elaborated report for the September confidential data showing you exactly where those increases came. And with that said, that concludes my report for you all. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have today or anything you'd like me to look into over the next month.
Thank you, Ryan. We sure appreciate it, and thanks for getting prepared and ready to present even when you were feeling terrible. Council,
Yes,
does anybody have questions for Ryan while we have it?
Anybody have any questions? I think we're all set, Ryan. Thanks for joining the call.
All right, thank you very much. And again, everyone has my contact information. Should you discover any questions or have a need for me to come out and address anything in the city, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. Okay?
I have a question.
Thank you.
One question, I'm sorry.
Really,
One
I
moment,
just want
Ryan.
to see if
Yes.
Ryan is a gentleman that the city set up to get back the money that all went to Wallace for the taxes. So he's the one who's recouping it that Jennifer and Erica set up. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we're all set, Ryan. Thank you so much. Hope you feel better.
all right, thank you for the ability. Thank you for the ability to serve you. We appreciate it. Talk to you next month.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Anybody else needs to reset with the screen moving out of the way, you're welcome to. We're going to move on to item 7B in new business. Miss Natalie is here from Breedlove to present the 3 years of audits, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Welcome, Miss Natalie.
Hey, how are you all?
We're good.
I'm going to move closer, so I'm not sure my voice travels very well. I am here to represent Breedlove & Company to present their fiscal year audit for 2019, 20, and 21. Beginning with 2019, we have issued a unmodified audit opinion for the year, which means that in our opinion, the financial statements as presented in our report are free from material misstatement and error. That's the type of audit opinion you want, and that's the type of opinion that we have issued. So, for 2019, beginning on page 5, there is a summary of net position, and on that page you will see that it was noted that the unrestricted net position for that year decreased $115,000 from the prior year. On page 6 of that report, there is a summary of the changes in the net position that shows your gross revenue for the year, less your expenses, and how we arrived at that decrease for the year. So the one point to note on this page is that the change in net position for the year was $206,765. However, we had to make a correction of error from the previous year to the tune of 91,458. So that's why there is only a net decrease overall for the year of the 115 that we mentioned on the previous page. So the management's discussion and analysis is the council's opportunity to inform the readers of the revenues generated, the expenses incurred, and the direction for the city going forward. The financial statements are presented on a fund basis, and then we adjust them to a modified accrual basis. So that's why you have 4 pages of financial activity. Pages 9 and 10 are the modified accrual balances at the end of the year, and page 10 is the adjusted income and expenses. And these are all in line with standard governmental auditing standards. And then on page 11 and 12, you have the general fund, which is basically the city excluding the component units and the adjustments to bring it from that. Fund principles and the adjustments made are demonstrated or explained on page 17. And it's the adjustments to the conversion of property tax, because we report it on a cash basis for the general fund, and then we adjust it for the modified accrual basis. And again, that's just standard practice. The notes to the financials begin on page 13, and it talks about the city's significant accounting policies that they've adopted, and that continues through page 17. And then we have the additional footnotes to the financials relating to the sales tax revenue, your ad valorem tax, and the tax rate. For 2019, the tax rate was 24 cents per $100 of assessed valuation. That resulted in a tax levy of $150,582 for the fiscal year. And that was based on a taxable valuation of $62,722,822 for the 2018 valuation. Because we're a fiscal year, we're kind of off kilter, so to speak. Sales tax revenue for the city was $124,715 in sales tax and $24,000 in mixed beverage taxes. Note 5 is the city's capital assets, and for 2019 there were no additions or disposals, and all assets owned were fully depreciated at the beginning of the year, so there's no depreciation adjustment made to the books. Then beginning on note 6, and this was new for 2019, the city implemented a retirement plan and other post-employment benefits plan for its employees, and that note begins note 6 on page 19, and it's quite a lengthy disclosure, and that goes through note 23, where we start the supplemental death benefits fund that is offered to the employees. I am going to skip ahead to page 29 of the report, which is a report on internal control over financial reporting, on compliance and other matters based on the audit of the financial statements. In this report, we did note that the city was not in compliance with the timely filing and preparation of financial statements, and the city did we consider that a material weakness, and the city has drafted a response for inclusion in that letter on page 30 of this report. Beginning on page 33 is the required supplementary information, and we start with the general funds budget versus actual expenses, and we indicate there that the budgeted revenues were 96,000 lower than actual revenues for that year, and the expenses were 447,000 lower than actual expenses. No, sorry. Actual expenses were 447,000 lower than the budgeted expenses for the year. And then pages 34 through the end of the report are required disclosures related to the retirement and the other benefits offered to the employers. So, beginning on 34, you'll notice that there's a lot of columns that indicate NA. This required table is required to be presented for 10 years, but because you only had 1 year of activity, then that's why we put the NA, because you are required to put the 10-year presentation. That's the same for the table on 38 and 39. So before I move to 2020, does anyone have any questions on 2019?
I have a question. And Jennifer kind of answered, I think, part of it, but she only mentioned one. We have a quarterly financial report that shows 19 accounts, and this shows 15. Did they just not exist at that time? I'm assuming that answer is yes.
Bank accounts?
Just active
What she's
revenues
looking at is in the
accounts.
quarterly financial report, we have Cedars account. So at some time, when a Cedars account matures over 250,000, which is FDIC secured, you have to break that up and it goes into, splits into multiple different accounts. So at that point, there could have been a point where we only had one Cedars account, and then later on that Cedars account went over 250 and we split it into two. Cedars accounts mature anywhere from every 6 weeks to every 52 weeks. So it's a floating scale. So when you say that there's 19 accounts on a quarterly report, that was probably not done in 2019. If I'm looking at the one that you have right there, those accounts wouldn't match these right here. This is 2019.
Okay.
All right, council, any other questions for 2019?
I got a couple of questions real quick. The tax issues as far as personnel or whatever, was that was remedied, obviously, or?
That was remedied.
And then on the assets, we don't have a listing of our assets anywhere?
No, actually, one thing that Natalie forgot to bring up that she can expand on is that part of the reason that this audit was so late getting started is because our previous auditor was 1.5 years late starting the 2018 audit, and then he got into our QuickBooks system. He completely locked us out, put it into his information, and then myself, as well as Lori, we tried to get a hold of him for a little over 1.5 years. Natalie tried to get a hold of him for the better part of a year. And one of the reasons that this audit has ended up being so much more than was originally quoted is because his audit that was done in 2018 was not done correctly. Trial ending balances were not correct. When we went to start,
we have that correction of
the correction of error. Ending balances were not correct. Assets were not correct. On that audit, he had the city owned 0 assets. And so Natalie and I had to go through, and literally I'm walking around City Hall saying, oh, we have flood pumps, we have a building, we have this. And unfortunately, some of those things, Natalie can talk to that, were at end of life. They didn't have the value had already been appreciated on them.
You were going to say something?
I was just going to say that we did multiple phone calls on that topic. I did visit the office, I think, was it 22? And so there is some comfort in the numbers on the report that there is a building that the city owns. and other equipment that I've seen that Jennifer's provided pictures of and things like that. So the numbers in note 5, they were taken from the previous audit report, but as you can see, there was no value left on those, on the assets at the end of 2018, according to that audit report.
But that's because we don't have a listing of those assets.
Well, I don't know whether there was a listing for the predecessor auditor that he came to that number. I'm going with the number that was approved in that audit report. And I'm placing comfort in the fact that I physically inspected the building and other assets at site visit. In terms of the valuation and the breakdown of furniture, for example, I can't necessarily say that that's accurate because I don't know what was made up of that number.
This might be a good time to add that trying to contact the previous auditor at Sanderson.
Right, well, no, I understand that, I just,
So these sorts of questions,
Typically,
our
need to be
assets were not the
asked.
same in 2018 as they would have been in 2022 is the reason for my question. But that answers it, I got you. And you noted it in your other findings, so just kind of making sure that we've corrected what needs to be corrected.
And Courtney, you mentioned before that about the employee tax. I think that's what you
Says
said.
they weren't paid.
No, they were unpaid.
it says they weren't paid
timely, because I was out on maternity leave, but I'll also bring up an issue that we've discussed with Natalie, is that the previous auditor went in and set up our retirement, and you will see as she put on the retirement thing in here, and Erica and I, instead of being paid per council's approval with Texas Municipal Retirement System of 5% of our salary to go into our retirement, we were paid 0.05% for an entire year. We never came back to the city and asked for that money to be paid back to us, which was due to us in our contract, but we did have Natalie noted in the audit. So for an entire year, as you will see in here, the city only paid to our retirement less than, it was not much. $7,000. It was paid at 0.05%, not at 5%.
And that
So
was
that is
approved by
also-
council when?
And it was 2018, no, it was before I
When we
was hired.
initiated the
Right.
TMRS, the retirement.
In 2018, I guess.
No, I think,
The plan is effective up
You
to
said that's when the mistake was made,
of
so that would have been when it
18.
was initiated, right?
So
yeah.
Natalie is saying it was effective October 1st, 2018.
So that's a fiscal year.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, that's in this fiscal year.
Okay, got it.
I'm sorry for going backwards in what you
No,
were
you're
asking.
fine.
Did you
I've
have
just-
another item?
She's got several items, there's 4 paragraphs here of other audit findings and issues. I just want to make sure that they're all clarified. The assets, and that is the only other question I have. The information that you received for the following years where it was in the same condition, I'm taking it?
The financial.
Yeah, because if you were completely locked out of QuickBooks, then
Yeah.
you didn't have any information on it.
There were a lot of spreadsheets utilized because FundView isn't caught up and current because there were no good, accurate numbers like broken down to put balances in individually. So as you can see on here, you wouldn't know that you have CEDAs with 19 individual accounts in there because it's just totals. So that's part of the problem with getting FundView up to date, is there were never good individual balances to put into the system to start.
They couldn't just transfer over, and that's what, I know that it's come up, well, why can't we just use QuickBooks? QuickBooks isn't fund accounting. Like, and that's what she addresses in here, is that it has to be set up set up for fund accounting. So.
Which according to Jill was not done. Is that an accurate
But
statement?
It's not that it wasn't
It's not
done.
that it
it's
wasn't
it's
done,
not
it
possible.
wasn't, you're correct, it wasn't done when we were utilizing QuickBooks, because it's not possible in QuickBooks. So when they started in 2018 and we were migrating we still had a QuickBooks system in 2018 and 19. So in 2019, when they go in to start looking, that's what she's saying, is that we didn't even have correct trial balances from our previous auditor to even set up fund view correctly to get fund accounting set up, because it was so grossly off from the previous auditor and his previous audit. We are completely set up on fund accounting. That's why you have departments and you have funds, you have your component units. That is fund accounting. That's the way it should have been. But we operated for a very long time not on fund accounting.
Fund view is set up. It has it has general ledger accounts, it has the different funds. The problem with put the information in fund view is because there was no good starting point or starting balances, the information in there is
You have to go back 5 years and do the research all over again.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
So, all the year's reports follow the same format, and again, we have issued a report with an unmodified opinion that we feel the financial statements are free from material misstatement and error. In 2020's report, the unrestricted net position of the city increased by 8,338 for the year. Obviously there was no correction of error in 2020 because everything was dealt with in 2019. Revenues did increase in 2019 from 414,000 to 494 in 2020. Expenses did decrease to 413,000, and that's how we arrive at our net position change for the year of 8,000. And again, all the footnotes follow the same format, and we have the same set of financial reports for the year. And the budget, actual revenues were 42,000 higher than originally budgeted for, and the expenses were $105,854 lower than budgeted for the year. I feel like those are the key points in that year. There were no other major changes.
What page are you on?
Oh, I'm sorry. The budget is on page 33.
33. Okay. That ways over.
Sorry.
Got it.
We're making the same material weakness statement in 2020 about the timely filing, completion of the audit as we did in 2019. There's not much else that's different, or I don't know if anyone has any questions on the 2020 report.
So the same issues, when did we put FundView into place? Because I'm pretty sure that was like last year, was it not?
Which is 22, correct.
So all the information from this is basically a guesstimate of what this previous guy had?
No.
Well, because you don't have any
The
assets.
starting point is the prior audit report that was approved
Right.
by the board.
But on the, like on the 18 year, or 2019, or 2019, you estimated the assets that were here in 2022, correct? As having
No, I took
no
the value of the assets that were in his audit report for 2018. I didn't see any
So you
capital.
did get the report from him?
Yeah, I got
I
the report
gave her the
from
report.
Jennifer with the numbers and the table exactly the same as it is in here. those numbers were written down to zero. That's what she meant when she was saying that there was no value to the assets.
Right, and then you
So
came
for
here in
example, if you-
2022 and did your own kind
I
of,
did my physical inspection that you do own a building, that there is
Right, right.
furniture, that there are other assets. Okay.
Are there particular assets that you're looking for?
oh, any. I mean, we've got TVs, we've got furniture, we've got
Okay, but a
building, we've
$200
got.
TV is going to do, I mean, that asset is gonna depreciate and not necessarily make an audit.
And in the footnotes, I believe it said that anything below $500 with a useful economic life of less than 1 year would not be capitalized, it would be expensed as incurred. So if the TVs cost $200 each per unit, then they would not be capitalized because it would go against your capitalization policy.
Okay,
Okay. Certain tangible items that are easily breakable, often entities of governmental or business type will not choose to capitalise, like an office chair that you can get for $45 at Staples. It doesn't make sense to take that $45 over 5 years, even though it may last 5 years, it's not material to the financials.
okay.
In terms of other opening balances, because we couldn't because we couldn't contact the previous auditor, there are other alternative procedures that were adopted to satisfy ourselves that that we were starting with correct balances. So any bank account that Jennifer provided me a statement for, they were sent an audit confirmation to verify the balance as of September 18 and September 19. And so then additional procedures were then implemented based on the statement balance, any checks written that may have had, for an example, a September 25th date on a check image would have been considered an outstanding transaction check in transit. And so we tried to reconcile back to those balances on the audit report, hence where that 91,000 correction of error came in. Any other questions on 2020?
Thank you.
And for 2021, on page 7, you will see that the unrestricted net position increased by $205,000 for 2021 fiscal year end. Page 8 shows that total revenues for the year increased from $494,000 to $577,000 for that year, and expenses continued to decrease from $413,962 to $372,000, and that's how we arrive at that increase in that position of $205,000 for the year. If I fast forward to page 33, this again is the 35 in this report, sorry. This is the budget for 2021 compared to the actual revenues and expenses. We can see that actual revenue was $150,000 higher than originally budgeted for, and expenses were $130,000 lower than budgeted for. And again, we've issued an unqualified audit opinion on 2021's year, and we have issued the same material weakness on compliance.
Just in layman's terms, the weakness in compliance is that since this wasn't done within the following fiscal year.
Yeah, it's just
It's not a surprise to me, but if you would
Yeah.
explain.
So it's just a material weakness in the internal control, that the control is not tight enough to prevent or to ensure that the audit and the financials are being issued in a timely fashion. I'm sure that's not a surprise to anybody. And that is the report for 2020. Those are the highlights of 2021. Does anybody have any questions on 21?
I do. On the cover letter for 2021, it says, during the course of the audit, it was noted that the city is invested in new accounting software. It's under other audit findings or issues, but that software wasn't purchased until this year.
Well, that's part of, well,
No, she just said that it wasn't purchased until this year. We didn't purchase it this year. We purchased it in previous years. And
I
that's-
think you're paying for an annual subscription.
Yes, it's an annual subscription.
Yes.
So it was
So it
purchased
was
in
purchased
2021.
Right, it's 21, right after, like, right when I had first talked to you. So what's the problem?
What's news about it?
No, we just,
It's not on any city council agenda, I'll tell you that.
Yes, it is.
We went back through all of them.
Well,
Fine,
it's on city council agenda. It was approved by city council.
I'll tell you which meeting it was.
well, we've been told so many times that this is new and that it's been recently purchased. That's what we've been
Well,
told.
I don't think I
so
said
many
recently,
times.
but it is new to us.
That's
And
not
because you
true.
have to go in arrears to put information in.
Uh-huh.
Of which we had to put in
History.
manually, but according to your letter, being a city secretary is an easy job, so anybody should be able to do that. I mean, you have to put it in manually, and when we didn't have a sufficient audit from the previous auditor, we didn't have information to transfer over.
And the other thing it says is, we recommend an appropriate employee or council member conduct an inventory of all capital assets and create a register of all assets owned by the city. So we evidently don't have,
Don't have an itemized breakdown of the capital assets that are reported in note 5 of any of these reports, and that's why those numbers didn't change, because I didn't see any major capital additions over the $500 capitalization policy.
but that is something you recommend we do.
That is something
Yes.
that I recommend that you do going forward. Obviously, the age of the building, 39, I don't know when the building was built or transferred to the city. My research indicated that it was around 1978, 77, somewhere there. So the building technically would have been fully depreciated over a 39-year life. Anyways, there's a number in the report I'm comfortable with. I don't think it would materially mistake these numbers as presented. The other items that we talked about were the flood pumps that are on the trailers, and I was advised that they were purchased in the early 2000s
By a grant.
through grant funds, and I was shown them and feel again that over a 15 to 20 year lifespan they would be nearing or completely depreciated.
We do need to locate other assets and make a list and keep a list.
What
Yeah.
assets do you feel are missing, Faye? Because you keep referencing that.
I didn't say that, I just said
You
we,
have.
no, it's in
It's a
here, in
requirement,
the
it's a
letter.
legal government requirement to have a list of all your assets.
So this,
But don't be argumentative, Jennifer.
Don't what?
let's
Don't
stop.
be
Let's stop.
I'm not being
So-
argumentative,
I
but you
believe
keep
you
bringing
are.
this
I
up,
believe
and
you
it's a
are.
bit, argumentative on your
It's,
point.
it's in her report, I'm asking about it, okay?
And we answered it, and we continued
No,
on.
Jennifer.
Given
no.
that we have a separation agreement with Ms. Ward, is this an issue?
No.
Because I'm not comfortable at this point.
No.
I'm a little uncomfortable.
So I have invited Ms. Ward to be here, as she promised before she left that she would be back for this presentation, since she worked so hard to help us get these 3 audits across the finish line. So she's not here as an employee now, but she is here as a courtesy, and she was invited.
So the separation agreement doesn't affect our presence here.
Moving on, do we have any other questions about 2020 or the audit process or any terminology that Natalie's presented for us? Okay. Great, thank you. Natalie, thank you for presenting.
You're welcome.
We've got the next item, there may be some questions. If you will still be with us, that'd be great.
Mayor, on that, that's an action item to accept the audits.
Yes. I just want to make sure Natalie wasn't going to.
I have one other quick question, and it's kind of before we accept these audits. The bills are attached to this as well. I just need to know if there was an additional contract signed or something along those lines, because the contract I have says 8 to 9,000, or not even 8, I think it says 7.5 to 8,000.
So we did talk, myself, Jennifer, as we both determined our employment and Ms. Boudreaux about the overages, because number one, when we originally bid on the audit or post on the audit, we weren't aware that there was the TMRS and the other post-employment benefits plan, which did add work and time to the audit. Obviously, there was time in trying to contact the predecessor auditor, and then we had to reevaluate an approach to complete the audit. Based on the information and the starting point, there was more time that was incurred. And so we did have a conversation, and it was approved to complete the audit, and the overages were accepted.
By whom was it approved?
It was approved that it would cost more than $8,000 by email. We were not aware of what the new cost would be until the audits were complete. So,
But that
no,
still
it
has
wasn't
to be
approved to be double, if that's what your question is.
Significant.
And that's why I asked if she would stay for the next item on the agenda to talk about that, to be able to answer questions about that part.
Okay.
Okay, question for you, Justin. I have consider and take action to approve the audits all in one line, but do we need to accept them separately?
I mean,
Or take action.
If council's fine with accepting all 3 years in one motion, that's fine.
Okay. So for item B, do we have a motion to consider and take action to approve the audits for fiscal years 2019, 20, and 21?
I'll motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Fantastic. Okay, 3 years behind us. We're on our way to catch it up quick and get ourselves set up for going forward. Item C is consider and take action authorizing the payment of bills for each of the 3 audits.
Can I just add one thing?
Absolutely.
For us to issue the final clean copies of the report, then I need the management representation letter signed by 2 members of council.
Okay.
Do you need those letters, or do you want to send those in the morning?
We have copies. I think we have copies printed. I don't have that.
I'm going to go back and answer a question. Fund B was approved in your January 2020 minutes.
So what it was initiated
You brought
at
the
the end of
copies?
last year.
Awesome.
So that's
paid
for
for it.
2021.
You paid for it last year.
Correct, you have to pay for it every year, it's a subscription.
We actually have a bill to pay for it.
Each year.
Because it's cloud-based, you have to pay for it every year.
I'm not sure who wants to sign, but that will finalize everything on our side.
Okay. So we can keep moving. Would y'all, Kelly, would you pass this over? Would y'all make that easy for us to get signed, please? If we can do it before Natalie has to go. Thank you.
You said 2 members of council.
Can it be the mayor and?
It can be the mayor and any other council member.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to item C, consider and take action authorizing the payment of bills for each of 3 audits for 2019, 2020, and 2021. The invoices are in your packet. They are, I didn't have it, let's grab it real quick. $17,925. Sorry, just grab 2 of them, I think they're all each year. The dollar amount was not shared, so we didn't have notice that it would be $17,925. What we approved was, this is almost complete. We will absolutely want to finish the audits. It's going to be more. Go ahead and finish and be sure and tell us what that's going to be. So this was news. I realize it's news to council as well, because it was news to staff about the dollar amounts. Once we've talked to Natalie and had some explanation about the amount of work that has had to go into going backwards and doing the alternative methods that she explained since the 2018 audit that we were using as a foundation was not robust. I should probably let Natalie use those terms, but was not robust enough to use. Just basically had to go back and do some very serious digging and work to create the foundation.
How long have you
Would you
been
give
working on this?
How long have I been working on this? We really started, so there was time originally put in when we got the original contract back to get confirmations from the tax assessor to reach out to the predecessor auditor. And we were waiting for information to come. And so then not a lot happened for a short period of time. And then we really went to this year after tax season. So it's been an ongoing project. Typically, we estimate 6 weeks turnaround for an audit from start to finish, and obviously we were doing 3 years. So there have been a lot of long days, late nights, and weekends to get this complete.
There were also some delays in this, coincidentally, in this time period. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
Starting with someone in your firm.
So,
you want to explain?
We were originally engaged in May of 2021. In that year, somebody, a co-worker at our firm unexpectedly passed away, and that left our office short-staffed. Then obviously we've had some other issues outside of everybody's control with, like for example, the winter storm, and then other just events and trying to get information. So it's just been, with the pandemic and everything else, that's just compounded out further.
Bottom line, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? Council, this is probably not the good point for questions from public, but we can take that from you after and see if we can get you an answer. Do we have a motion to authorize payment of bills for these 3 audits?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I'd like to know where we're gonna put that in the budget and not pull from reserves or roads.
So that'll come
the
from-
original point, and this is $54,000, and it was originally 23, which I get, and there was a lot of work done, and I super appreciate that. However, I just wanna know where we're gonna pull it out of the budget.
So that will come from this year's budget that isn't finished yet. I do not know the line item because we haven't discussed if we're going to do an interfund transfer or what the appropriate accounting practice is for that. Experts should probably say that, but so.
We'll discuss the line item when we have time.
There is a line item in the budget.
Right, so it'll be noted to budget, and we'll just show as we spent more than what's in the budget, but we have the money to pay for it. Is that a good explanation, or no? Don't let me say
No,
something.
that's correct.
All right, any other discussion?
I had a question on the 2021, it showed we had 1.6 million in assets.
Yes, in 2021, you had 1.6 million in total assets and deferred outflows of resources.
Okay.
1.2 million of that was cash and cash equivalents, checking account, and regular bank accounts, and then 340,000 of that was in the taxable account, which is considered an investment. And we had $6,200 due from the tax assessor, and you had other receivables of $55.38, and then there was $6,200 was property tax receivable, unpaid property taxes from 21 and prior years. $513 was held by the tax assessor at year end, and then you had 489 due from the EDCs, and so then you had a deferred outflow of the remaining 2,500. So there was 1.6 in assets, and we had 21,257 in liabilities at year end.
So how did we get to 3 million today?
3 million.
Or even a year ago, a year after the 21? We've always been told we had 3 million.
That's what I was talking about. They don't understand the difference between a quarterly financial report and a year-end audit. So the quarterly financial report shows exactly what we have right at that moment. This is the end-of-year audit after money has been expensed out. So what is in your operating that has been expensed out is not going, it's going to be reflected as expense. So when we look at a quarterly financial report, we're pulling numbers straight from the bank account.
If I may as well, the 3 million could possibly have something to do with the grant income that is subsequent to these year ends. So these are historical now. Obviously, they're still required, but there's a time lapse between the information that you're looking at on a monthly basis versus these reports. So that 3 million could have come from continued increases in 22 and 23. You did receive 2 big grants in following Harvey. There were 2, Harvey and the 2016 floods. There were 2 big grants that you were awarded, but there were delays in the city expending those funds, and those funds started to come through in 2021. That's where you see that $60,000 of grant income. However, in 2022, I believe the number was closer to $850,000, having done the subsequent events testing that we're required to do. So you had $852,000 in that grant income that I am aware about, and that could have factored into that bigger number.
That would have to have been spent in order for this quarterly report to be correct. Because the number it says in new first grants is only 233, and then if you take the Cedars, that's only another 202,000. So there's 400,000, but not quite to the 1.5 million. Oh, 292, excuse me.
Okay. Any further discussion about the approving the bills for the audit? 3 audits. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you so much.
I'm going to make a comment regarding FundView. The annual renewal that's going to be paying out this week or early next week is $6,839.44. So you will be seeing that on the September.
Okay, item 7D is consider and take action to approve audit engagement letters with Breedlove and Company for fiscal years 2022 and 2023. So 2022, we were just discussing in grants that came in. Would you like to address the proposals, Ms. Natalie?
Sure. So for the 2022 fiscal year end, our proposal or our fee estimate is $15,000 and $17,500. And that is because for 2022, you received more than $750,000 of federal funding, and therefore you are required to do a uniform guidance audit, which requires a lot more compliance testing, and the time to do that is increased. So that's the reason for the fee staying at that level for 2022, is because we have to implement those auditing standards. For 2023, we estimate, based on what we know today, that there was no further government funding, or any government funding was below the threshold for those uniform guidance auditing standards. Then we estimate for 23 between $12,500 and $15,000 to $15,000 for that year.
Great, thank you.
I think this one says 15 to 17.5.
They say 17. I misread that. I'm sorry. It does say 17.5, 15 to 17.5.
Just want to be sure that was right. We'll take the lower number.
If it comes in below any of those numbers, then our final bill will reflect that.
Okay.
All right, council. Do we have a motion to take action to approve the audit engagement with Breedlove and Company for fiscal years 22 and 23?
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Motion carries. Thanks, everybody. I know that was cool. Long, Ms. Natalie, thank you so much for traveling from Tomball.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm happy to. Ladies, if you don't mind to pass the documents for signature, we'll just do that real quick so she can take this. Our final item on the new business agenda is item E, speed zone ordinance. We are considering take action to approve an ordinance altering the prima facie speed limits established for vehicles under provisions of section 545.356 of the Texas Transportation Code. This is a request from TxDOT. The speed limit would not be changing. There is just no matching ordinance to what speed limits are today, and so they've asked us for an ordinance to round out that packet of information.
I think you ought to tell TxDOT that Will's not there.
I certainly do. I still get that. Lots of things that we don't hear from folks talking about. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Great. We have a first and a second on the speed zone ordinance. Faith and Justin, right? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. 1 second to sign, and we will go back to the consent agenda. you very much, Kelly, for helping with that. Okay. Item 6, consider and take action on the consent agenda. Council, do we have a motion? While you're thinking it over, I wanted to note, if the public has seen the copies online or not, we have added some things that were maybe difficult to understand, so you'll see that there are copies of Amazon bills, so that if there's, council doesn't have to ask for, the public doesn't have to ask for, what are we buying on Amazon? You can see paper and binders and some really glamorous stuff like that. We'll continue to add more backup documentation as we go over the months. That's what we had time to collect, and we knew that there had been some questions about what do those type of purchases mean. So we'll keep adding as we go on that.
I see there are 2 different credit cards that are used. How many credit cards do we have?
There's 3 credit cards for the city.
We have had 3. Right now we have 1.
I'm gonna make a note to that, Eric. The credit cards for Erica and Jennifer have not been completely deactivated because I'm in the process of transferring all of the automatic payments. They are secured, they are locked up, and they are not being used except for automatic payments.
Thank you, Jennifer.
I have a question on this monthly payment report. It looks like we got a new one again.
It's the same payment report.
Okay, so we're gonna separate the items out.
But no, I'm
One
just,
second. We'll go ahead.
no, there's, you have a payment report on the front, and then on the back, you have payment dates. There's 2 from July, and then the rest are from September 14th.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, there's like a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's all kinds of general ad valorem from 9/14. Is there a reason?
Because they were added into the system to make sure that they're accurate, they are retroed back to the dates.
So this is for 7/1 to 7/31, but the payments were made, or the deposits were made in September?
The deposits are automatic, Courtney. It's going into the system and placing them into the system.
I understand that, but the date on here is for July. The date on these deposits was September 14th.
It's added into the system on September 14th.
So that means that's the date that Julie manually keyed it in, but it means it belongs to July, but that is capturing the date that she
Okay.
put it in balance.
It's an automatic payment.
Right, so in order to, you might have to give a little bit more
Okay.
explanation. I'm not the expert at that, but
They send a direct deposit to the bank account, it's automatic. Then they send an email, and then you have to go pull that email, and then you have to add the deposit into FundView.
But it took you 2 months to do that?
Probably because of all the requests that I keep getting from council members.
and you're part-time.
And I'm part-time. And I'm a party of 1 currently, with the help from here. So yes, it took me that long to do it.
Do we have any other questions on the items on consent, or shall we separate them and vote separately? So we have the monthly paid bills and the minutes for August 15th. I will say that on your agenda sheet, it's not a material error in the documents themselves, but the City of Simonton Council report with check dates, it says July 7th to July 31st. That is just, I mistitled that document when I saved it. So the name of that document should be July 1 to July 31. I've just changed it to have the correct name. All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, let me write that down. I had no idea. Sorry, y'all.
Did we lose Jamie?
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried.
I would like to make a side note regarding the finance department. I am a party of 1 currently with the help of Janie, who just started. The number of requests affects day-to-day activity. So again, I'm part-time, trying to handle all of the city's business. If there is an issue with my timely record keeping, please address it. at this time because I don't want to receive 25 emails tomorrow.
I've emailed you once.
Okay.
I know, you just called the attorney, I got it.
Wow.
Moving on to item 8 is reports. Under city council member reports, Justin, I think you have a good update to share.
Yes, the trailer was, I guess, delivered today. It was picked up, it was ready. I went and picked it up over the weekend, brought it, haven't unhooked it, but it has been delivered. It's here. So,
Thank you for your job.
It has that new trailer smell.
yeah.
It's got new lumber on it. It
Still
smells
shining.
good.
So.
Thank you.
The hoses, sorry, another note, and I contacted the company for the hoses. The hoses are ready to be picked up. So anybody that wants to volunteer to pick them up downtown is more than welcome to. We can figure out a way to schedule to pick those up. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, those are replacement hoses for the pump. And so once we pick those up, we'll bring it out here, and then there'll be the task of transferring the hoses that are still good from the current trailer onto the new trailer with the new hoses. So we'll be looking for volunteers when that happens for hauling or helping to coordinate that. I think we've covered plenty of business from my desk, so I don't have an additional report. Anybody else on council have an item to deliver? All right, with that, we will adjourn at 7:56. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Around all the time.
I heard Anthony's